Hello and welcome to another edition of Fide's podcast. My name is Jerry Serino and I'm your host, and I'm here with talent on loan from Rush. I am also here with a great talent from Ohio, a fellow Ohioan who is taken her pro-life skills to the highest levels in her profession. She is the former 2001 Miss Ohio. So I am very honored and privileged to have Lora Current here to talk about some great stuff she's doing and the importance of life. So, Laura, thanks so much for coming on.
Jerry, thanks so much for the invite. I love talking about life. I love talking about Ohio and the communities of Ohio.
Yes, and so I have to admit when I looked you up and to look some of your background, and I saw you were from Rosewood in Champaign County. I went, where is that? So I had to look it up, and I know exactly where. I've been in roughly that area. I've been all over Ohio my
Even on
whole
the
life.
map, it's kind of hard to find, isn't it? It's probably
Yeah,
about a
you have to
mile
zoom
long
in.
by
You're
a
like, "Oh,
mile
okay,
wide.
it's northeast of Troy." Okay. All right, that makes sense. So I wanted to maybe start with that because we'll talk about a lot of the cool things that you've been involved in. Being Miss Ohio is a pretty cool thing, and you were 20 years old at the time when you won?
Yes, I was. So,
Okay.
yeah, really unique times doing that. And actually, I love that you were able to look at my small town because that's just shaped so much of who I am. And my background is just, I think, unique, maybe a little quirky, but unique. I grew up as one of seven kids. I'm number six
Mhm.
on a cattle farm in rural Ohio. Just grew up with a beautiful family who loved the Lord very much and taught us children to do the same. We cared for our community, and we're just taught the importance of life on the farm and life in our church and general human life. So, just a beautiful place to grow up, beautiful to be raised in a big family. Now, I
Mhm.
joke there's a pretty big age gap between me and child number six. So, we have one boy who just turned 16, so just got his license. And then the oldest kids are now having kids. So, we have babies and new drivers, and it's just a beautiful time in a big family. So, a bit of a different
Yeah.
upbringing there to where a sheltered, in a very good way, protected upbringing just taught good values, values from the Bible and the way that God views life and God views us and how we're uniquely designed by Him. And then it was kind of stepping out into these other areas, even just going to college and then getting involved in the Miss America organization, getting involved in other organizations that I really started to see, okay, the way that society views life is very, very different than the Bible and is very
Mhm.
harmful, not only to unborn babies, but harmful to society, harmful to families. And so that's kind of where my background shapes a little bit of what I'm doing now and why I'm doing it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, I know the gap in kids. My oldest sister is a year older and my youngest are 20 years apart. And
Wow.
so my little sister was an aunt, I want to say at age 5 or 6 or something like that. And it's pretty cool. But so in looking up Rosewood, Ohio, again for those in Ohio and live here in Ohio, it's just northeast of Troy, or
Hmm.
further northeast of Dayton, roughly sort of northwest of Columbus and so on. It's I think the population that I looked up was like less than 1,000 in the actual city.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe that was slightly inaccurate. So what was it like? I mean, I can't imagine. I didn't grow up in major cities. I mean, I'm a suburbs of Cleveland. But what was it like in going to school, and what was the community
So,
like?
so I always joke that, and it's not a joke, it's reality. There were more cows on my farm than there were people in my town. And even
Mhm.
like my family, extended family, probably took up half that population. Half that population is probably currents. So it was a small, tight knit community. We have one little general store, one little firehouse, and one little church, and that's Rosewood. And so I was actually homeschooled through all of elementary school, and again, that was very intentional by my parents. But something about me is I just loved being around people. And when you're in town that small, your neighbors are like miles away. And my church was really small. I had a great youth group, but my church was small. And so around seventh grade, I broke and I was like, I have to go to school. I have to be around more people. So I went to Troy Christian, which is just a great Christian school in Troy, Ohio, north of Dayton, and finished out my academic career there. And so that's just kind of where I got to get
Mhm.
involved a little bit more with just people around. But being from a small town is special for a lot of reasons. One is because you're very close with everyone, close with my
Mhm.
family, close with my community, and can really care and see the needs around you. But it also creates, again, I think, especially for children, children need to be brought up in a safe
Mhm.
environment, an environment that is fostering good qualities and good morals for that shape the rest of their lives. And that's what Rosewood provided for me and my siblings, to where now I can step into these more secular areas with good, strong roots and a good understanding of truth and where truth comes from. So for me, Ohio and Rosewood, Ohio will always be home, and it was just a beautiful place to grow up.
Yeah. So I'm just curious then, as far as the getting into pageants. So how did that start? What age did you get involved in that? Because that's, especially coming from a small town, farm town. That's a
Yeah,
unique area to get into.
yeah, no, that's what people ask me, like, oh, was it a dream always to be Miss Ohio? No, never even heard of it. I actually, to this day, have never watched Miss America. I probably should
Mhm.
at this point, but no. And so, really, the way that that got started was through agriculture. So, I got a job when I was 19. I was with the Ohio Fair Managers Association, which is just an agriculture industry for youth. And my role was I'd travel around to the 88 counties and I educated people, adults and children, about agriculture and where their food came from. And I fell in love with meeting people. And so I was at one event, and a woman came up to me and she was like, "Hey, you're good at public speaking. You could use a scholarship. You should give Miss Ohio a try. My daughter did it several years ago. You'd really like it." And I kind of thought, like, I just didn't know anything about it. Like, I'd seen some movies where maybe pageantry was a thing, but I
Mhm.
didn't know. I thought, okay, some mean girls in a weird situation, in a weird environment. And so I really didn't give it too much thought until March of 2020. COVID hit. And so I just got sent home. I was at Taylor University at the time, out in Indiana, finishing up my sophomore year. And we all got sent home thinking, okay, it's going to be a few weeks and then, okay, maybe a few months. And I started to get a little bored. And it was like, okay, well, maybe I will give this Miss Ohio thing a try. There's a couple locals. You have to compete in a local competition in order to qualify for state. And I was like, there's a couple left before the state in the summer. Maybe I could try it out. And she was right. I was in college. Scholarship's always a win there. I
Mhm.
danced. I grew up dancing. So there's a talent portion. I love a good competitive interview. And I have a little bit of a competitive side to me. So I was like, this could be fun. And again, what else is anybody doing right now? So I
Right.
competed in March of 2020 at a local. And shockingly, I won. And the very next day, the country shuts down. And so I was thinking, okay, this Miss Ohio thing, it's March now, Miss Ohio competes in June, 3 month long commitment. Well, that turned into over a year. But in that, I just fell in love with the girls that I was competing with. They were sharp, they were smart, they were incredibly kind, and they pushed me to be better and I mean, in all areas of life. So I just really fell in love with the competing side of that, but also just the service that you're able to do. I was able to, even in the midst of COVID, travel around the state and talk about education. I have kind of a unique story through my own education, and I value a good, solid education. I'm somebody who believes that a good education can unlock incredible doors of opportunity.
Mhm.
And so I was able to really use that through COVID, and encourage a lot of students, both statewide and nationally. So then when I went to Miss Ohio in June of 2021, as the youngest competitor, as a first year girl from
Yeah.
Hicktown, Ohio, I was able to present, here's everything that I've done, and here's kind of what I stand for, and here's the beliefs that I have, and here's how that could benefit Ohio. And that was enough. And the judges absolutely loved that and gave me the opportunity to show that to the state. And then on, of course, on a national level, to again present my values and present where I came from, all the way back to Rosewood, Ohio. So it was an incredible opportunity, meeting a lot of incredible people who still to this day feed into my life. And there's seeds
Mhm.
that I've gotten to plant that now I've gotten to continue to feed into or see grow. So all in all, a beautiful experience, one that I couldn't have seen coming at all, but very thankful that happened.
Yeah, it's cool with where you went from, just being approached about it. Next thing you know, within a couple of years or
Hmm.
less, you're
Hmm.
Miss Ohio. That is really cool. So I presume that in Rosewood they have a sign or something that says Miss Ohio is from here or
Oh,
something, because you see those all over the place.
there's been jokes about it. It was really sweet though. There's a send off party before going to Miss America, And I mean, when I say everybody in my county came, it was just the sweetest thing, because it was just an exciting time. I think it was just a good excuse for the community to get together and to celebrate
Hmm.
around somebody or something. So I do give a lot of credit to where I've come from and the people that I've come from.
Yeah. Okay. So let's talk about the whole pro-life stance that you've taken, and it can be received in various ways. Obviously, I
Hmm.
think it is an inspirational one. It's great that you have taken this. I feel like that, especially in the Miss USA, that the sort of leaders of that would not be fond of the pro-life ideology. Like, if you were asked a question on, and you're on Miss, USA, and you're asked the question and you bring up pro-life, that would be controversial. How was
Hmm.
it received, um, at all levels, Miss Ohio level and then beyond?
So yes, so it was received differently by different audiences and different people. That's something, when stepping into this, I really prayed a lot about, because I'm knowingly here stepping into a very secular area where, yes, I mean, they're kind of blatant with, these are things we accept, and these are things that, as an organization for women, we are saying are empowering to women. And I fundamentally disagree that abortion is empowering to women in any way. And I've
Mhm.
seen that firsthand with girls that I know and girls that I've competed with, where this is not a good thing. The culture of life and sex and dating and all these things that we are saying are good for women really aren't. And so that's what I really prayed about, is, okay, Lord, if I'm going to step into this, then equip me, be by my side, that, okay, I'm saying truth. I'm never backing down from that, even in situations where, okay, I know I'm going to get some backlash for this. But give me the right words to say, so that I'm not turning away people. I'm not missing out on any opportunities, but I'm really able to share truth in a way that's full of love and full of
Mhm.
grace and full of just encouragement and true empowerment to women and people. And so
Mhm.
I was able to do that. And of course, there were situations where, no, 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 I had a lot of pushback. And I found there was interesting things in both. There were situations that came up that I could have, like, I would have thought that that was the last place in the world that I'd kind of get the opportunity to share about Jesus Christ or share about my pro-life views. And people kind of intentionally brought that out and asked me that, or wanted me to talk about that. And then in other situations where I really got pressed on that, what I found interesting was, more so than being pressed on pro life views, I was pressed on my faith. And that kind of solidified, okay, this is not just a society issue. This is not a women's health issue. This is an attack against God. And that became very evident in the attacks that they threw at me, that they throw at other pro-lifers. And so it was just unique to navigate all those. And again, I was blessed with really good, solid people around me that I was able to, okay, how do I deal with this situation? And
Mhm.
how do I stay true to what I'm saying and what is truth, without kind of shutting that door, without shutting that conversation off? And so I will give one example. During one interview, I was directly asked about what is my response. How did he say it? He said, "My body, my choice. Respond." And so I was able to respond to that, and again, say exactly what I believed, without saying, okay, that's totally wrong and that's all these reasons that it's harmful and terrible. It's like, okay, here's how I can directly say it. That again kind of invites for more conversation, to where we have a little bit more time to discuss things. So I got both. I really did get both.
Well, you definitely have the natural talent and ability to speak, and speak very well. So I can definitely see how you were impressive to the judges in Miss Ohio,
Thank you.
and in all your competitions, and in front of people, who ask those types of questions, like, "What do you say about my body, my choice?" And I've done those. I've been on college campuses, and I've spoken, and took questions, and it is very, very easy. And in one time, I think, I got a little bit upset, and I don't think my answers or my engagement was is sort of welcoming as it should have been. And I think it pushed the people away in the one instance. And I brought it back and kind of,
Hmm.
calmed down very quickly. But I think you're right in how we have to we have to respond properly. And
Language matters. That's the biggest
yeah,
thing I think I
yeah,
learned is language matters because we can be saying the right things, but if we're not saying them correctly, and again, not showing God's love in the midst of that, then we really are just playing into a terrible narrative. Um,
hmm
and so that was one thing is even just through social media, I got a lot of pushback of your job is to represent women empowerment. So how could you be against reproductive health and reproductive
yeah,
these things? And so that was when I really got the opportunity to be like, no, 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 I have these views and I believe these things because I am about women empowerment. I am
yeah.
about the health of women. And so to kind of explain it and break it down that way, it kind of sometimes the attacks allowed me to open the door to those types of conversations, even if they weren't intending to.
hmm Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And so you ultimately you went on to Ohio State, and
Mhm.
you finished up there, and now you're doing a sort of virtual Harvard while working here in Ohio. You just couldn't leave Ohio. That's my take on it. You just couldn't leave.
I am just a
It,
planner and I've just found out that God just chuckles at my plans. That's what
yeah.
I found out. So yep, I
So
finished up my undergrad at Ohio State and then was going to get my master's at Ohio State. Some things changed and I said, no, I'm not going to get my master's right now. I'm going to get a job. I want to focus on the pro-life, conservative, family
mhm,
values area. Specifically try to work for a nonprofit and work a couple years. And then I got accepted to Harvard University. So I decided, okay, instead of quitting for the job that I just got hired to, let's figure out a way to do both. And so it's worked out wonderfully. My job is amazing, and my boss is amazing and letting me kind of do both. But it's worked out well.
yeah, so tell us about where you're working then,
Mhm.
a little bit about the group.
So I work for Heartbeat International, which is the world's largest affiliation of pregnancy help organizations. So that includes maternity homes, pregnancy care centers, clinics, anything that's around the area of pregnancy help. And so we provide trainings, resources. We just finished up a conference last week, but any ways that we can help pregnancy help organizations help women, aid women. And so I jumped on as the assistant to our president. That role's kind of changed a little bit. And I also now get to write for Pregnancy Help News, which is a news outlet
Mhm.
that talks about the pro life wins. So if you look at the news or the media, and anywhere pro life, it's kind of filled with policy or the hard things that are happening in life. But there's wins in the pro life movement every single day. There's abortions that are being reversed, and babies that are born healthy, and families that are flourishing. And so I get to really report on those specific things as my beat and celebrate along with those and encourage others as well as myself being encouraged through that. So that's paired up really well with going to school. And I've kind of got to use both platforms to, again, share the truth about pro life.
Yeah, so you had mentioned, your writing, so you do have a great
Mhm.
article, called "Trying to Change People's Hearts: Pro-Life Student Groups Undeterred by Woke Mob at Harvard," and that's on pregnancyhelpnews.com.
Mhm.
Very well written,
Thank you.
pregnancyhelpnews.com. And yeah, so you go from Ohio State to Harvard, and even though have been singing the praises of Ohio, and my son goes to Ohio State, love Ohio State. Any university these days, doesn't matter what it is, even if it's a Christian university, quite frankly,
Yeah.
you're typically dealing with mostly leftists, especially the professors and the like. How were you received on the Ohio State campus? You don't have to give me names of people or anything, just in general, how did you find a lot of like-minded people, even in a, sort of liberal community?
Yes, you're 100% on with where schools are going right now. And I appreciate, and it's unfortunate what you said is true, even with Christian schools, even with private Christian colleges, this
Hmm
is creeping in, and it's a big thing that we need to keep our eye on. Again, I love Ohio State too. I'm a third generation Buckeye. I'm all about it. Uh, I had a hard time at Ohio State. I really did. I was in the social work program, more the macro side, so focusing on government policy, nonprofit organizations, and larger communities. And so, especially in the social work area, the department, but I think in all areas of college, I mean, you say any kind of belief or view that remotely aligns with the Bible, and you're really pushed into a corner. You really are, and it's sad, and it's completely unethical and unfair. And so I had a bit of a hard time there. I had some professors who were blatantly biased and blatantly just unfair, and I had to report a couple of those incidences just because it was very difficult. Going to Harvard, I was also a little nervous about this because we all know Harvard's reputation for that.
Hmm.
I was at their commencement last year for a friend's graduation, and they had a speaker come in, and everything that the speaker said, I was like, I fundamentally disagree with each one of your views. So I really stepped into that with a little bit of hesitancy, and even just not committing to will I graduate from Harvard, but just okay, let's give it a try, take some classes. And I was blown away actually by the professionalism of the Harvard professors, because even ones that I can tell are pretty secular, they treat it fairly.
Hmm.
They allow me to express my opinions, which I just as a student, as a person, appreciate that very much. When it comes to the broader campus of both Ohio State and Harvard, again, it just becomes a little difficult. And this is where it's my generation, and so part of it feels like a little piece of my heart is kind of saddened for this, because these are kids. I'll
Hmm.
lump myself in with that. These are young adults who have just been fed lies for a long time, and it just has gotten messy. What is true and what is good? And they're listening to society of all these things that okay, this is how you achieve happiness, and this is how you achieve freedom, or this is how you achieve of these good things that are healthy for you or empowering, and it's really not. And I just see
Hmm.
these friends, these classmates, these people around me, just fall into these pitfalls, and for what reason, when the truth is right around us, and the truth is healing and helpful. And just to see that is hard. And then on the flip side, to be then attacked for that, it is discouraging. That's the best word for it. Is it's discouraging in both places.
Have you ever had specifically a young woman who maybe was left leaning or had the ideology of the left that in order to be pro woman or the like, you had to be pro abortion, and seeing you, hearing you speak and so on, because you are an influential person in that you're successful, you're happy, you're empowered, right? You're not a meek woman. You're strong, confident. Have you ever felt like you've it, at least opened the eyes of a young woman?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Then, like I said, the opportunities, surprisingly so, come up quite often through things that I will say in a class, through things that I'll say in a group of people, or even through social media. I'll get that peak of curiosity, someone coming up to me and just being like, Laura, you're a kind person. How are you having these unkind views towards reproductive health?
Hmm.
And I'm able to explain, okay, this is why society is saying that it's unkind, but here's the truth about it, and here's the reality of what this does to women. And it's that peak of curiosity of like you said, there's something different. And so I don't understand why Laura thinks the way she does, or why Laura lives the way she does. And so, okay, let me just ask a few questions. And I've seen some of that to where, okay, I'm able to explain it and explain it well and change minds. And other times I'm just able to, again, just pique that curiosity enough that they continue to think about it. And again, it's a hard battle because, like you said, messaging matters. And the left, big abortion, is really good at messaging and really good at labeling pro-lifers as a certain way or a certain type of people. And so it's been interesting to be in realms that kind of help break that stereotype, or to be in situations that kind of open the door to, okay, maybe there's a little bit more to the idea of life and the right to life and the sanctity of life than what I've been told. Maybe there's a little bit more to women empowerment than what I've been told. And so those opportunities have come up, and those are the opportunities that I really celebrate and really help me get past the same amount of times when it's okay, I feel really discouraged, and it's sad to see these things.
Yeah. So you kind of summed up everything that I was going to ask, sort of in my last question, which was going to be, and maybe you could concisely sum this up. If a young woman, let's say 19 years old, just entering college, who believes that her empowerment, her success in life depends on her ability to have an abortion if she wants to. What is your response to a young woman who says that?
I want to start by empowering her in who she is, and who she is because of who she was created to be. So I am, like I said, I am all for women empowerment, but what society is saying is women empowerment is not true. And so if we can break down, okay, how are you as an individual, as a young girl, created to be? And women are created to be mothers. We are created with the ability that men don't have, with the capability that men don't have. And so I actually see it as very unempowering for big abortion to be coming in and saying, the thing you were created to do, you're not strong enough to do it, and you can't
Mhm.
do it without an abortion. No, 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 no. That's a lie. The one thing that I'm created to do, we're able to. And we can point to many different situations, many different examples of empowered women, incredible women who have many kids. I mean, on our Supreme Court, or
Mhm.
my mother who was a doctor and had 7 kids and homeschooled. There's example after example, both on a secular scale and a mass scale, of women who are truly empowered in their femininity, in their womanhood, in their motherhood. That no, 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 the lie that big abortion is telling you is nothing more than a lie, is nothing
Mhm.
more than a gain for them. And again, it's not because of what we're able to accomplish through our jobs, through our careers, but because of who God created us to be as mothers.
Yeah, and ultimately, the fundamental issue at hand for so many of those that think that way is that they don't have a belief in God, and if they did, they wouldn't. In my belief, overwhelmingly, they would not be pro-abortion, and so that's really sort of the what's caused all this is a lack of faith in God, and then
Hmm.
then ultimately people will believe in anything like transgenderism and everything that we're dealing with right now.
Yep.
If you don't believe in God, then hey, I guess
Then
there
where
can
does
be,
truth come from?
yeah,
What
where
is
does
right
truth,
and wrong?
yeah, yeah. And so, 130 genders, okay, right? You'll believe anything. So, yeah, really great stuff. Really great work that you're doing, Laura Current, Miss Ohio 2021. Doing some great work, speaking the truth, and doing it with a smile and doing it well. So, Laura
Thank you.
Current, thanks so much for coming on. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Jerry.
Yeah, my pleasure. And thank all of you for listening to this episode of Days Podcast. Please check out my podcast and all the podcast apps on YouTube, on Rumble, on WHKradio.com, and on Wednesdays at 7 p.m. Eastern on rightamericamedia.com. So thank you again, and we'll see you next time.